Hi, it's Katrina. My friend David is going to be helping me out with the voiceover today, so I hope you enjoy.
Number 10. Biblical Bad Girls. In the Bible, there are 3 very specific bad girls. These aren't necessarily scary creatures, but the Bible certainly depicts them as terrifying women. There's Delilah, who comes from the book of Judges in the Old Testament. Then there's Jezebel in the book of Kings. And finally, we have Salome in the New Testament. Delilah was described in the Bible as a Philistine, a liar, and a lady of the evening. She symbolized the temptations of Satan, always portrayed as a seductress, a betrayer, and a woman of great treachery. In the book of Judges, it's Delilah who was bribed by the lords of the Philistines to discover the source of the great Samson's strength. She seduced him into admitting that it was his hair that provided him with such great strength. Samson had fooled her 3 times, lying to her about the source of his might, but he finally gave in and told her the truth. And so, when he slept, Delilah had his hair cut off, taking away his power, so he could be handed over to the Philistines. Jezebel was the daughter of King Ethbaal, who ruled the Phoenician city of Tyre. She married King Ahab of Israel, then persuaded him to worship the Phoenician god Baal Melkart, considered by the Christians to be a false idol. Jezebel was the one who introduced the worship of false gods in Israel and was behind the killings of the worshippers of Yahweh, the one and only Hebrew God. She helped plunge Israel into decades of wickedness and murder, and even made the great prophet Elijah flee for his life, lest she kills him too. In biblical literature, Salome was the one behind the execution of John the Baptist. After John the Baptist was imprisoned by Herod Antipas for his condemnation of Herod's marriage to the divorced wife of his half-brother, he wanted to have John the Baptist killed, but he was afraid of the consequences of murdering such a popular prophet. And so, after Salome danced seductively before Herod and his guests at a great festival, he promised to give her whatever she wanted. She asked for John the Baptist's head on a platter, forcing him to have the great prophet beheaded while making it look like it wasn't his fault. Number 9. The 4 Beasts of Daniel. The 4 beasts of Daniel appeared before the great prophet Daniel in a vision given to him by God. The beasts represent the 4 kingdoms that would precede the end times, displayed as the 4 fearsome monsters. The first beast appeared as a lion with the wings of an eagle, and as Daniel watched the vision, the beast had its wings torn off, only to stand on its hind legs like a man and have a human mind inserted into his head. It's then that the angel tells Daniel that the 4 great beasts are the 4 kings which will arise from the earth. The first beast is thought to be a representation of King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. The second beast is a bear with 3 ribs crammed between its teeth. This beast has an insatiable hunger for flesh and is considered to be a representation of the Medo-Persian Empire. The 3 ribs in the bear's mouth symbolize the 3 nations that were devoured by the Medes and the Persians: Babylon, Lydia, and Egypt. The third beast is a leopard, yet it has 4 wings on its back and 4 great heads. This is a representation of Greece, with the 4 heads depicting the 4 divisions of its great empire following the death of Alexander the Great. Last is the 4th beast, which rises from the sea, a massive underwater monster with bronze claws and iron teeth. It trampled victims underfoot and devoured them, annihilating its prey and having 10 horns sticking out from its head. As the mightiest of all the beasts, it is a representation of the great Roman Empire, the mightiest kingdom in the land that crushed all its foes. Because the Antichrist emerges from the 4th beast, it leads us to presume that, in the end times, there will be a restoration of the Roman Empire, highlighting a league of 10 world leaders. The Antichrist will take his position of control at the expense of the other 3 leaders, and he will ultimately wield global authority. A true oppressor, the Antichrist will mandate worship and seek to control all facets of life. Number 8. The Nephilim. The Nephilim are a race of superhuman giants that are described in the Bible as roaming the lands of the world. The brief account of these creatures is somewhat confusing, contained in only 3 brief verses at the beginning of Genesis in chapter 6. Because the description of the Nephilim is so short, It's been the subject of great debate for centuries. In brief, the verses say that when men multiplied and daughters were born unto them, the sons of God took them as wives. There were giants in those days, and also in the days after, when the sons of God made children with the daughters of men. These offspring then became mighty men of great renown. This could mean a lot of things, but what it could mean is that angels descended from heaven, had children with human women, and then those children were born as giants. But it's briefly touched upon. It's not until much later in the book of Enoch, one of the forbidden books of the Bible that never made it into any final copies, that we hear more about them. In the book of Enoch, the angels are a group of conspirators that plot to sleep with human women. This unholy union creates the Nephilim, ugly abominations that motivate God to cleanse the earth with flood waters to eradicate them. This is when God interferes and tells the angels to caution Noah of the upcoming flood, intended to heal the earth that the angels have corrupted. God additionally orders his loyal angels to destroy all of the spirits of the reprobates and the children of the watchers, because they have wronged mankind. Destroy all wrong from the face of the earth, and let every evil work come to an end. Number 7. The Behemoth. The Behemoth is a powerful beast from the Old Testament that you might actually find at your local zoo. It's described as a powerful creature that eats grass and has bones made from bronze, with limbs as thick and strong as bars of iron. In Jewish legend, it's said that the righteous will witness an incredible battle between the great Behemoth and the equally terrifying Leviathan, and the Leviathan will win and feast upon the flesh of the Behemoth. The Behemoth might actually just be a hippopotamus. There are old religious sources that identify this magnificent beast as dwelling in the marshes of Jordan and not being afraid of the turbulent waters of the river, and the Leviathan as a crocodile, whale, or snake. The Behemoth visibly bears a resemblance to a hippopotamus. A hippo does not actually have bones and limbs of bronze and iron, but these might be verbal expressions to explain its power. The tail, like a cedar though, is puzzling since a hippo's tail is little. Its proof of identity as a hippo has been the most shared view of Behemoth throughout much of history. Number 6. The Leviathan. The Leviathan, much like its enemy, the Behemoth, might also be hiding out at your local zoo. Some biblical experts say that if the Behemoth is supposed to be a hippopotamus, then the Leviathan is without a doubt supposed to be a crocodile or an alligator. But let's look at what it says in the Bible. The Leviathan is described as a mythical creature in the Old Testament, a water dragon covered in scaly armor, with sharp teeth, deadly claws, a serpentine body, and the ability to breathe fire. But then again, the description changes depending on which biblical references we're looking at. In the book of Job, the Leviathan is said to live among mundane animals like goats and hawks, and so it was probably a Nile crocodile. Then again, other experts claim the Leviathan was meant to depict a whale. In Hebrew, Leviathan actually translates directly to whale, and so that's not a far stretch. If we go even deeper into the Bible, we can surmise that the Leviathan isn't a creature at all, but a metaphor for the immense size and unstoppable power of God. Or if we're going for the wildest definition, an actual demonic beast that lives in the ocean. What do you think the biblical Leviathan represents? An ordinary crocodile or some kind of sea demon feasting on the souls of unwary sailors? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe before the end of the video. Number 5. The demon Lilith. Lilith is mentioned only once in the Hebrew Bible, but she is still one of the most famous biblical icons to this day. Her story goes back to some of the earliest mythology and folklore of the Jewish people, and most experts believe she was placed into the Bible briefly only as a kind of homage to those older tales. In mythology, Lilith was a woman with beautiful black hair who had an insatiable hunger for spawning demon babies. She would prey on helpless newborn infants, possibly eat them, and then seduce men and trick them into impregnating her with authentic monsters. Many people believe that long before the Bible was ever written, female demons like Lilith haunted the nightmare of ancient Babylonians, Assyrians, and many other civilizations in Mesopotamia. There are male demons called Lilu and female demons called Lilitu. These creatures even appear in the most ancient fable in human history, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Plus, there was a Mesopotamian goddess called Lamashtu, who had wings like a bat, caused miscarriages for fun, and stole infants in the middle of the night. The people involved in writing the stories in the Bible were possibly inspired by the older mythologies of the region. In the Old Testament, Lilith appears in Isaiah, associated with goat demons and hyenas, but that's the only place she is mentioned. All her more interesting stories came either before the Bible or much later in the Bible's forbidden chapters. Number 4. Asmodeus, Demon of Lust. Asmodeus is one of the most terrifying princes of hell. He's a monster with 3 heads, a demon who can spit fire and fly around on the back of a dragon. And while he's not described in detail in the original version of the Bible, he falls into the same mythological category as Lilith. Lilith is even supposed to be the wife of Asmodeus, the great demon of lust. According to some accounts, Asmodeus is described as a fallen angel who followed Lucifer in the rebellion against God. But in the Talmud, which is a collection of Jewish histories and tales, Asmodeus is described as being the son of Adam and Nama, a demon from Jewish mysticism. Asmodeus is said to be one of the 4 angels of harlotry, conceived even before God created Eve. Many of these biblical monsters have varying origin stories, kind of like how the Marvel heroes have different origins in different shows, movies, and comics. Only all these characters were created centuries ago. Out of all the 9 crowned princes of hell, Asmodeus is definitely one of the worst. Together with his wife Lilith, they spend their days endlessly creating demonic offspring to cause as much chaos as possible throughout the world. Number 3. Horrifying angels. When we think of angels, we think of powerful beings that look just like ordinary humans, except they have wings and maybe a flaming sword. But in the Bible, angels aren't so appealing. Some of the descriptions of angels in the Bible border on horrific. For example, the cherubim is a lower level of an angel, which is described in the Bible as being a human and an animal hybrid. These angels are tasked with guarding the Garden of Eden, each one with the face of a lion, an ox, an eagle, and a human. They have 4 wings, ordinary human legs, but bull hooves that gleam like brass. The description of these angels differs greatly from how most people would imagine how angels are supposed to look. The word angel actually comes from angelos in Greek, which itself came from the Hebrew word malach, which means messenger. The Malachim in the Bible, as they're called, are simply God's messengers. They are his angels, and yet nowhere in the Bible, not in a single passage, are the actual messengers of God described as having wings. Many historians wonder if the authors of the Old Testament got the idea of the seraphim's wings and flames from Egyptian images and relations with the cobra. Number 2. The truth behind Satan. The greatest beast in the Bible is the devil himself, also called Satan or the Evil One. There are many other names people refer to Satan as. He is referred to as Archfiend, Beelzebub, Devil, Fiend, Lucifer, Old Nick, and a serpent, just to name a few. But the word Satan is a literal translation from Hebrew, which means adversary. In the Bible, all kinds of different figures are called Satan, from the Book of Kings to the Book of Numbers. It was as time went on, and more Jewish writers began describing the big bad angel who rebelled against God, that Satan went from a word for an adversary to the adversary. In the Old Testament, the devil is mostly described as a snake, both literally and figuratively, but he was never really depicted as a beast with horns. The earliest known depiction of Satan is a mosaic in the Basilica of Sant'Apollinare in Nuovo, Italy, and in the picture he looks just like an ordinary person. It wasn't until the medieval period that the devil became red and grew horns, and it wasn't until the 14th century that the devil was depicted as a beast with animal body parts, hooves, a tail, talons, and webbed hands. Around the same time, Dante Alighieri wrote Inferno and cemented Satan's image as a horrible beast with mighty wings, living in the deepest pit of hell. Number 1. Balaam. Balaam wasn't specifically a creature from the Bible, but he was certainly a villain. His story is told in chapter 22 of the Book of Numbers. Balaam's name and his story became notorious, and he is mentioned more than a few times in the New Testament. Peter compares false teachers to Balaam, who loved the wages of wickedness. He was a non-Israelite prophet, and he was also the son of Beor. King Balak of Moab offered him a large sum of money if he would curse Israel. Instead, Balaam blessed the Israelites, as was ordered by God. This doesn't really seem like something a villain would do, and it wasn't until the book of Revelation that Balaam became a villain. His story in the book of Revelation is significantly worse. He doesn't curse the Israelites, but he tells King Balak how to seduce them into sin. He explains how it's possible to corrupt the Israelites with immorality and false gods. Because of Balaam, the Israelites fall into a pattern of sin and debauchery, which forces God to send a deadly plague unto them. Balaam initiates a deadly plague that infects all of Israel and brings great pain and suffering. Which terrible beast from the Bible freaks you out the most? Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll see you soon for another amazing video.